everybody. Thought I'd do a little bit of a kind of vlog style video today. I've been working ridiculous hours at my job, and so my kid's pool needs cleaned, and I need to make a video. So I figured let's try and kill two birds with one stone. I've been thinking for a while what I've been wanting to do with the channel, and recently I posted my unboxing video when I got my Wolfgang guitar for Father's Day, and that was awesome. And I've been wanting one of those for ages and ages. Then I got to thinking, during the video I played a couple Van Halen riffs, and I'm like, this is a guitar designed by Eddie Van Halen, and Eddie Van Halen is my hero. I mean, I discovered Van Halen in '83, shortly right around the time Jump was released, but before the album 1984 came out. That happened, I think, January of '84 is when the album was released, but then like a month or two before that was when the single Jump was released. That's when I got into them, and I started playing keyboards because my buddy Dave was a much better guitar player than I was ever going to be. So we decided we were going to make a band, and he was going to play guitar, and he knew a guy at school that played drums, and I was going to get a keyboard. I got a keyboard for that Christmas, and I learned how to play Jump, and we started a band, and it was fun. And Van Halen's been a huge part of my musical life ever since then. But then a few years later, when I switched to guitar, I never really learned any Van Halen on guitar, even though Van Halen, Eddie's still my hero, probably my number one musical inspiration. But I never actually took a lot of time to learn how to play it. And I thought, why is that? Why did I never learn it? And I remembered something Eddie said in an interview years ago. I can't remember exactly how it was worded, but he basically talked about when he was coming up and Van Halen was coming up and they tried to do cover tunes, he could never really sound like the bands they were trying to mimic because he could only sound like himself. And I kind of took that in, I think, a really dumb way now that I think about it. I took it in, don't try to mimic your heroes, which on the surface is a good idea, but I took it, shooting a gun. I live out in the country. It's not a terribly concerning noise to hear. I hope we're not getting too much wind. It's very windy out here today. Hope my audio's not terrible. It's pretty cool. Yeah, talking about Eddie, talking about not being able to sound like any of the bands, I kind of took it as don't try to mimic your heroes, but I think I took it a little too far in that I decided to never even try to emulate any of what he did because I wanted me to come through. My way of emulating Eddie was to not emulate Eddie at all, was to try and do something original that he had done. The problem with that is I'm not Edward Van Halen. I am not a musical genius. I am not an incredibly innovative player. And I think in a lot of ways I spent an awful lot of time holding myself back when I could have been learning. I could have been learning a lot. And I didn't take the opportunity to learn the things that I could have. I didn't take the time to delve into the chord phrasing or the song structure or just the riffs themselves and seeing how they were put together to give myself a better vocabulary for writing and composing and playing in general on my own. So I've spent a good bit of time lately thinking, wow, I might have been a lot better than I am had I actually taken some time to learn these things and learn from them instead of trying to actively avoid them in some sort of attempt to be original, to be the free thinker, to be the radical guy that's going to come up with something new. And I overlooked a really important way to get the tools to be able to create something original and innovative sounding. I think there's a lot to be learned now at this point in my life by emulating your heroes. It's not about becoming a copycat. That was the thing I wanted to avoid. You know, there's a billion Eddie Van Halen copycats. There are guys that can play every stinking note he ever played, and you almost wouldn't be able to tell it from the album. But there's something I dislike about that because it's just copycat. It's just emulation. There's no originality. There's no improvisation. There's no real innovation there. It's just replicating what's already been done. And that was something I definitely didn't want to do. Okay, let's get the filter out here. Surprisingly, not terribly filthy for not having been cleaned in about 5 days. Okay, let's put that filter back in. Alright, and turn the filter back on. We got water. And gotta put some shock in because we're out of chlorine. Because chlorine is really hard to find this year. So you have to shock it. Shock the monkey. Apologies to Peter Gabriel. Okay, so where was I? Learning Van Halen. And why I hadn't learned Van Halen. I think I need to learn some Van Halen. I mean, I've picked up a few riffs here and there, just some very, very basic, simple riffs, you know. You Really Got Me, the main riff to Running with the Devil, Best of Both Worlds, the intro. But there's a lot of other stuff that I never picked up. I just never did. We weren't playing it in any of the bands I was in at the time. I just didn't pick it up. So I think there's a lot of stuff I need to. I want to go back through. I'm probably not going to do a whole lot of solos because I've never been a super strong lead player. I may attempt some stuff, a few licks here and there, just to see if I can pull it off. But I think I need to learn a lot of the riffs. I need to learn the songs. I need to learn the main structures of them. I need to not just learn the one riff that everybody knows from the song. I need to learn the verses. I need to learn other things that got thrown in there. Because I think there's a lot of substance there that I have overlooked in my quest to be original that has led me to actually be a lot more ordinary because I didn't get the vocabulary to do more interesting and innovative things. And I think it's time I correct that. Alright, so as you can see, I'm dressed differently, and that's because when I originally recorded this video, the section where I got my guitar out and played was completely corrupted, was totally unusable. So I'm going to try and redo it. Alright, so this is not going to be like a full perfect performance. That's not my goal here. My goal is to break down the parts, learn the parts that I didn't know of the song before, like the verses and the solo. I'm not really focusing much on the solos, but for Running with the Devil, the solo's pretty simple, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a whirl. But the goal is to break down these parts and see what I can learn from their structure. It's not about being able to play them perfectly and sound exactly like the album and give you a grand performance of the song. I'm just trying to learn what I can from the song itself. So I already know the chorus riff, which is... And let me stop right there before we get any further. First off, I'm tuned to E natural, not E flat like the album. And there's been a trick that people have talked about for a long time that Eddie does with his tuning that I'll show you right here. When you get up on these high chords, when you start down low, it doesn't sound bad. When you get up to here, it sounds a hair out of tune. So what Eddie would do to correct for that is just detune that B string a little bit. Okay, now the parts in the chorus there, it's all just major chords, which the more I think about it, doesn't really lend itself to any particular key because there's 4 chords in there and they're all major chords. I don't know any keys that have 4 major chords. There's 3 major chords in most keys. You got your 1, 4, and 5. But this is using, if we start with the first chord as a 1, it's a C major, up to D major, and then a G, and an A major, and then E. So actually that's 5. C. So 5 major chords. What key is that? I don't know. I'm not a music theory expert. I took like 2 semesters of it in high school, so I know just enough to be dangerous. And then we go into the verses, which is the part I did just learn, and that one is a lot simpler than I realized. Sometimes to my ear, the chords sound a little more complicated, but they're actually just dyads. They're just 2 notes. And so he starts off with an A. And that's just a G and a B, a major third, and then down to an F sharp and an A, and then E and E and G. Now, the interesting thing about the dyads there is that with only 2 notes, you can indicate a chord, like if it's going to be a major or a minor chord, but you have to have 3 notes to make it a major or a minor chord. The dyads, when you're using just the thirds like that, could be a major, could be a minor. For the first one there, the G and B, well, that's the first 3 notes of a G major chord. If I add the D, and then if I add an E instead of the D, suddenly it becomes an E minor. Now when he shifts down a half step here to the F sharp and A, well, F sharp and A is the top dyad of a D major. And now it sounds a little bit out of tune down here because I've got my B to be able to do the higher parts. Or it could be an F sharp minor. So you can kind of go either way there. My feeling is the way he's playing this part is that it's supposed to be a major down to a minor down to another minor. But it could really be anything you want there. It could be major or minor. Now the harmonics there, I need a little more work getting around there. I, for years, always thought it was just on the 12 and on the 7. But somebody else on YouTube pointed out that if you listen a little closer, there's actually a 5th one in there. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 on that G string right at the very end. So it's pretty quick in there. A little extra flavor that I hadn't caught before, so that was new for me. And that's basically the verse. The first time he goes second time he just goes from the G straight to the E. And then right before he goes into the chorus, pounds on that low E power chord. But in the verses on each repeat, after he does the G to the E, there's a little extra thing where he puts in either the harmonics or he just does a little trill on the 7/9. And it alternates that, you know, it's pretty simple structure overall. But to my ears, those little dyads always sounded a lot more complicated than they are. And I think that's because they have a tendency to sound a lot more open. And it sounds like harmonically there's more going on there than what there actually is, which is pretty cool to me. And then we go back into the chorus. And another verse. Now when we get into the solo, I learned something, and it may just be the guitarist's personal preference who I watched to make sure I was learning the solo correctly. But the guy I used to play in a band with a long time ago always played that solo here with kind of a D major chord shape. But the way the other guitarist showed was to slide up here to the 14th on your D string. And that makes that bend a lot easier to get to because you're already right up here next to the 17. And that little triad climb there, or dyad climb there, for the end. Now, there's a little whistle sound in there. Some people try to do that on guitar, but I'm told that was done on like a little slide whistle in the studio. And that is basically it for the song. There's only the three parts, the verse, the chorus, and then the little part for the lead. There's not a whole lot there, but he uses it in a way that kind of maximizes the harmonic content of those individual pieces. And I think it's just great songwriting. All right, so that is it for this song. What Van Halen song do you guys think I should try to play next? I want to try and keep it on the easier side right now until I get my skills a-flowing better. Maybe let's try and stay on the first album. We'll just kind of progress through chronologically as I get better and better. Let me know in the comments below. You guys can follow me on Instagram and Twitter and TikTok, and you guys can all leave me comments there and tell me what you think I ought to be pushing for. And if you have not already, please subscribe to the channel. That way you see anytime I upload something new, and you guys are first in line to see that. Visit my website, which I'm going to put somewhere in this vicinity, and I will see you guys next time.